What is an Oneg, and can one attend one without attending a service? You may have some strong opinions about this, but please, if posting comments, do so after learning from this video. A good comment would be to answer the question of attending just the Oneg, and then your thoughts about it after watching or just listening to this full video. Now, my brief search found not a single video about this on all of YouTube. That is referring to Onegs, and there's something kind of like it I learned about, but in that, I don't know if that's on YouTube, but we'll focus on Oneg in particular here. Okay, so expecting the subject exists in text on the internet, I didn't read others' opinions before making this video. In making this video, I hope any viewers will take away any additional perspective, whether or not they remain with the same opinion on this matter. I believe it is best for people to understand each other, and unless a behavior is especially harmful, then it is best to be understanding of different perspectives and behaviors. This doesn't mean we shouldn't make efforts to influence others, but that influence should be done with a more goal focus than a problem focus. For example, a cigarette butt on the ground is littering. If a friend or acquaintance does this, then instead of saying, "What are you doing?" disposing of it like that, you should not litter like that. What can you say? Well, I think you could say, well, actually, if you said that, that could come from feelings like anger or concern. I'd want to stay goal-directed and educate them on my perspective in as non-judgmental a way as possible. I may say, I had learned that a cigarette butt's filter is a plastic that doesn't biodegrade and can cause a variety of problems when placed on the ground. They may be offended hearing it, but especially if they didn't know this fact, they may yet reconsider the practice. So, what is an Oneg? Okay, so when I grew up, I went to a conservative synagogue, and after the service, we had some limited food and socialization. I found the services quite difficult to sit through. I wish services were all more geared toward all ages, but that is hard to do. Even if you do it, doesn't mean it's geared toward everyone of that age. I mean, I meant, all the kids, it's just very hard to do. So, anyway, I don't remember the term Oneg. So when I heard it upon joining our Reform Temple many years ago, I eventually concluded it was food after a service. Yet this isn't quite the definition or translation. According to Wiktionary, Oneg is a borrowed word from Hebrew, meaning pleasure. Yes, it says that, pleasure. That's a quote. Okay. The Jewish Chronicle states Oneg literally means pleasure or delight. Jewish English lexicon doesn't seem to look at the meaning of Oneg, but seems more like what I've interpreted at the temple, though calling it Oneg. So noun is how they put it. Okay, an informal festive gathering Friday night involving food, casual Torah study, Jewish songs, etc. But the second definition is more particular to a temple, and that is a noun. An informal reception held in a synagogue after Friday night Shabbat services and on Saturday after morning services, including drinks and snacks. Okay. Does one have to have both? The definition doesn't say so, but there are unwritten rules out there. Now, when I say both, I'm referring to both after a service, and do you then have to be in the service? It wasn't in that definition. It didn't say it. It said when it's held. Okay, so while I see the version involving the informal reception, I am more influenced by a term being a Shabbat Oneg, translated as a pleasure or delight of the Sabbath. Both views are valid, even if one is more common than another. But nowhere in the definition or modern version do I see that it is forbidden to go to the social gathering to celebrate the Sabbath. And by that I mean, more that's exclusively what the person's doing. Yet tonight, when I say tonight, I'm more thinking about when this happened, which wasn't literally tonight, but anyway, the night it happened, some months ago now, I felt as if I had sinned. And I'm not saying I'm using the term literally or sort of figuratively or whatever, but ultimately that's how I felt kind of that way, or at least I'd done wrong. Okay, so within the last year or two, my son has attended more services than any child I have seen at this temple. And this is despite the fact that I get migraines due to the lighting that they changed to some time, quite a few years ago. They changed the lighting, making services no longer accessible to me despite all kinds of eyewear I've tried, medications and medical procedures. This has to do with migraines. So over time, I have slowly transitioned my attitude that I think comes from an unwritten rule, such that now for me, the Oneg is a social gathering marking the Sabbath with food and friendly faces. So I guess you could say I had, maybe from what happened in the conservative synagogue, which had a kiddush, they called it, which I thought of as blessing with the wine and not necessarily other things, but as we've seen today, as I've learned, I've noticed it really did have a bit more to it, some snacks or whatever. So let's see, where was I? Told you about my transferring my attitude and how it happened over time. It was a gradual process. Though I've not been able to attend most services for quite some time, except I could do them virtually if I wanted to. For me, the Oneg must revert. I'm not much of a virtual service attender myself, but I could do it. But for me, the Oneg must revert to its definition. Given my situation, that's what it must be for me at this point. So I've sometimes listened from the social hall. And other times I've worked on numerous projects that have helped the temple. A couple years ago, my son asked for an exception for good reason, just to attend the Oneg. Given my transformation and the special circumstances, I agreed. Now, when we were there, I heard there was an adult bar mitzvah, which the temple calendar did not list that I can recall. And it does list other bar mitzvahs. So I told my son about how it was a special service having this, which was meant to encourage voluntary, I'll emphasize that word, voluntary service attendance in the future. So that was my point, well, partly that, and partly it was kind of interesting to bring up to him what I learned. So those are my reasons I explained to him, and in the hope that he will voluntarily attend service in the future. I also found a special drink that another member may be interested in, who wasn't at the service or Oneg, so I texted him about it, essentially advertising the service, as he would likely attend services and Onegs, possibly in the future, maybe a little higher chance he would, I don't know, but I think it's maybe a good idea if you go and you find something worth talking about or sharing, do it, share that positive thing. Okay, so I also had some work to do with a water filter there, and even more to do with hazardous waste disposal, more work. But it was most unlike me, none of it came to pass. What threw me off and derailed me, you might wonder. Okay, so at the Oneg, the rabbi asked me, and there's a rabbi that I've found has a lot of good things he says, a lot of good points. So, but anyway, what happened in this particular instance is not typical. So anyway, at the Oneg, the rabbi asked me, without any smile, not that I remember anyway, as his then stern face was etched into my memory, and I felt chastised as I was told I should think about what values I'm teaching if my son attends an Oneg without the service. So I said, I did think about it, because I didn't just go to the service without having thought about it. As you now know, I've talked to my son about it, there were circumstances and so on, so I certainly thought about it. But he said, think harder. So it appeared my contributions to several Onegs and my son's attending like all services until then for a long time, and so forth, did not appear at the time to be much importance to the rabbi. If it was, no, not if it was, it was, I wanted to say, it was as if I had repeatedly done this supposedly bad behavior. He looked quite angry, but he said he was not when I asked him about it. I know my heart rate intensified, and I wonder if his was somehow calm when he sounded and didn't appear calm, either in talking nor when he walked away from me. But as he's the rabbi, I decided to follow through on his demand. I mean, it felt as a demand. It may have not been meant that way, but that's just how it, the kind of the wording, the tone, it wasn't a question mark. It was a, basically do this. So yes, that's what it was. What I think is I broke an unwritten rule that the most spiritual of congregation members would dislike the most. But I also think there is value in a Shabbat Oneg for socialization. Taking delight in the Sabbath instead of driving home and forgetting about the Sabbath, about Shabbat. And as I think most congregation members do, especially if we include those who don't, well, let's see, if we include those that don't go to the service at all, of course, then those who do go to the service, I don't know. It's hard to say. But anyway, that's what I did there. And let's see, as far as other things I thought of about this. Let's see. So I broke an unwritten rule, I explained that. Or at least I think I did. Okay, but well, I do think there's also value in a Shabbat Oneg for socialization. I was explaining, right? So what I mean by that is taking delight in, well, you know what I'm saying, right? I think that's clear about take delight in it so you have a good social experience. You go home after that. Okay, so anyway, I think another part of going is building relationships within the congregation. And there are many more reasons. And this video is probably long enough, so I don't need to necessarily get into all that, at least not today. Anyway, there is a regular attendance of services at the temple, but a small fraction of the seating is being used. So I don't think the majority of members are going. Now, another thing that our temple has done that has been successful is to have monthly dinners. They were originally going to not have services on those nights. As far as I can recall, it wasn't originally planned, but instead they went for doing somewhat shortened services. I'm not at all aware of any issues with just going to the dinner, especially knowing the origins. And even the rabbi originally was thinking to do the dinner only. If I got that right, and if I'm wrong, I'll be corrected, I hope. On those nights, okay, I think that was the original expectation, which that would be a little strange in that we'd have a temple with no services on a Friday. There would still be something done, probably blessings over the bread, the wine, so it wouldn't be devoid of all spirituality. Okay. Anyway, so I was saying I didn't know of any issues that would be a problem if you went to just the dinner. Yeah, okay, so let's see what else is there. Well, anyway, going back to what I was saying about how the rabbi probably, at least from what I thought I heard or knew, didn't expect those nights to also be services, but they ended up being both. And though I guess he's now happy services weren't skipped those nights. Yeah. But anyway, but still, can a person attend just the dinner? Maybe, or at least it seems so. It is too much food to be considered an oneg, right? Or is there no limit? Perhaps. Or is it because the dinners help the temple to make a bit of money? that it seems more okay to just come at the end if you want. Nobody's talked to me about it. I've done it over and over again. Not every time, but certainly many times. Did it before the incident and after the incident. Never got a stern look or anything either. So, but if that's it, if it's because the temple makes a bit of money from it, or I don't know what they make, but I think they make money from it, and that would be good. So I support that. Okay, but why not other things people can do to help at Onegs without a service attendance besides direct money? I mean, if money is a part of it, I wonder if somebody came and they brought like $5 or $10 to attend the Oneg, would they? Well, first of all, it's not done. But I think if people started doing it, I wonder if that would not get any negative responses. So let's see. Well, let's see. So why not other things people can do? Yeah, besides money. Okay, so maybe if people go to Onegs and bring money, is acceptable to skip the service in the rabbi's mind. So again, I don't think that's what I was getting at before, but I don't think, since it's not done, it probably wouldn't be, but then what's the difference between the dinner and the Oneg? The Oneg it happens after the service too, but it's more food, so more food. Anyway, we never discussed this, so I can only make an educated guess. And another thing is, if someone can't make it to the service, perhaps for a very good reason, that's personal, they don't want to share, and they can still make it to the Oneg, they should just drive home and not attend? If so, then clearly they are not welcome. Now, personally, I think someone who only takes and doesn't give should look at that for themselves and what values they're teaching their children. I'd also be against someone coming at Oneg time, eating food without helping and not socializing with peers. Except if they have social anxiety issues, and eventually this kind of attendance will lead to socialization or some other benefit to the Jewish community. Our rabbi sometimes at services or dinners says to speak to those we don't know. So non-social Oneg attendance might work in the long run, and I'd no longer be against this. Or maybe someone takes food to go, coming for a brief visit. This sounds bad, but maybe not if that someone has a sick congregation member that they're caring for that never gets to go to Onegs, and they are bringing them food. Then perhaps that should be good. Or what if food is taken to go because someone is bringing their chronically ill spouse who watched the service on YouTube, preferring not to zoom in, then stopping by for some food is as reasonable as attending the service in person and the Oneg. If the rabbi sees someone doing this and wasn't informed, then the approach to the congregation member should best come from a place of curiosity and not judgment, as in, hi, I noticed you've been coming to get food, but not attend the service or stay for the Oneg. As this isn't something I've otherwise seen, I'm wondering if you can let me know if there's anything we can do to help with attending. At that point, the person might say what's going on, but if they're put on the defensive, then that wouldn't be good. I think it is sometimes hard to remain curious about something that appears to go against your values. But this curiosity is something to strive for and apologize about when things go awry. And another point is, if the service must be mandatory to attend an Oneg, and someone watches the service online after the fact, soon after, then shouldn't that count? If not, then the Oneg food is to reward in-person service attendees. Anyway, possibly the rabbi is a master of getting people to think things through regardless of the risk to losing members or maybe causing rifts. Perhaps he knew it possible firmly talking to me like that could lead to something bigger, like the first YouTube video on this subject, which, while it will probably have minimal views, it is possible that this will have many views over the years and be good for Judaism. On these possibilities, his affect showed me that he planned it out all along. Is like this is unlikely. But I do think he was highly successful, at least in getting me to think on it further, as I've clearly done. On the other hand, I've been unmotivated to bring my son to any services since then. I'm not saying I won't bring him. I'm not saying I haven't asked him at all, but my enthusiasm has gone down a lot of notches. My number of askings has decreased quite a lot, rather than pretty much every week, once or twice. Now it's maybe once a month. Okay, so of special note is if Oneg means pleasure, then I attended Oneg only until feeling chastised, at which point I was no longer in attendance at an Oneg, even though I was still physically present. So, what values and perspective did I teach my son? 1. We broke an unwritten rule, as far as I can tell, seemingly offending the rabbi, and faced the consequences. 2. The values of the temple or rabbi seem to be more about attending both, possibly only the service, or nothing at all. And it seems most of the congregation prefers nothing at all. However, this doesn't necessarily prove there would be more Shabbat Oneg attendance if people were to be welcome to attend one or both. I think it would, but it doesn't prove it. So I maybe there's some temple somewhere else that's tried that and they have results, so we could at least say how it worked in their situations. That could be an interesting thing to look into if I had like maybe a rabbi email list or something like that. Okay, anyway, or if I guess if someone is in like a social media group with a lot of Jewish people throughout the country, they could ask that question and see if that did improve Oneg attendance by making it very clear that everyone's welcome to attend just the Oneg, just the service, or both. Okay, so as my son said all on his own, this is number 3. Let's say someone named John never goes to services or Onegs, but Dave goes to almost all the services, but he missed one service and went just to the Oneg. At least Dave went to the Oneg, unlike John that went to no services or Onegs. Why should the rabbi be mad at Dave's dad and not John's? So I thought he had a good point there, and I want to remind you there's no proof the rabbi was mad. He just very much appeared that way, but it doesn't prove he is. He said he wasn't. So I can just say here's how I experienced it and how we now experience it. Okay, number 4. Right or wrong, I may have taught my son a Shabbat Oneg is a time to get together and celebrate the Sabbath, and all should be welcome, regardless of course, service attendance, in that time at least. Okay, here's number 5. So since I fairly often contribute something to the Oneg or temple when I'm there, it shows him the value of reciprocity. But he's not, okay, a value of reciprocity, but he's now also learning that when someone feels chastised, they may disengage or otherwise not continue the same level of reciprocity. 6, if your rabbi says to think about something, then that should be taken seriously, even if there is disagreement. 7, both rabbis and members would do well to speak and also listen. 8, it is of value to be one of the few, or by appearances, the only child in the entire congregation who knows about the adult bar mitzvah. Perhaps it would have been best for him to see the adult become a bar mitzvah. And we've subscribed to the Temple YouTube channel, and it is always possible he will. But he did learn about it and did see the man. At least he's a step ahead of all or the vast majority of the youths of the Temple. Now, thanks to my bringing him to the Oneg. I feel like that alone says he should go to Onegs only if for whatever reason we decide to do so, and it should be appreciated. Okay, number 9. Try to do something constructive with negative feelings, like spread information about Judaism through YouTube. My son is interested in being a YouTuber, so this fits well. Number 10, fight for your beliefs, but thoughtfully, and try to do so with a solution or goal focus rather than a problem focus. 11, a Shabbat Oneg is of value all on its own. Services are as well, and the combination is arguably the best. 12, via observing me, my son saw the value of socializing with other congregation members, though he didn't do much of it himself without any peers present. Not a single child or other child was there, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm saying without any peers present until soon before my rabbinical encounter. So there was, he had a little bit of socializing, because I was in the midst of socializing, and then something was being discussed. Okay, so I think that's how my son got involved a little with socializing despite no peers present. Okay, number 13, behavioral science, particularly in this obesity epidemic, shows not to reward children with food, and especially junk food. They may say it creates an unconscious expectation to do something good in order to be rewarded, and when food is the reward, this can feed the obesity epidemic. The value I'm teaching my son, therefore, is that going to a service need not have sweets immediately following, even if it tends to. I've even brought him and 4 other kids, using my 7-seater car, to a service in a prior year in the summer that had no Oneg. Number 14, I think it isn't right, but I welcome opposite perspective, that he has attended 1 or more services without an Oneg, but that he supposedly shouldn't attend an Oneg without a service. That seems unfair and imbalanced. OMG. 15. Think about if a person should take that unwritten rule as something to adhere to with orthodoxy, if all should be welcome to attend a Shabbat Oneg regularly all on its own, or make exceptions from time to time. As a young child, I was at an Orthodox synagogue, and I think they handled a lot of matters with orthodoxy. I disagree with a lot of their ways, but instead of this creating a rift, my upbringing allows me to be more understanding of their views, which is socially good, even if I support other views such as female rabbis, using the Bible as a way to see our ancestors' experience of life instead of a book of definitive facts and God's direct writings. I seek to teach my son that instead of them harshly judging us and us them, that we should seek understanding even if it won't change our perspectives. I believe one of the best ways to influence others starts with understanding the other's positions. Now, I imagine if the situation, let me start over. Now, imagine the situation if all families at the religious school were to attend the Oneg only. Imagine if people kept joining the temple to do this. Believe me, I know plenty of Jews in the area who are not a member of any temple. I think if the rabbi were to talk to those hypothetical Oneg-only attendees about how nice the service was, that this larger crowd would increase and not decrease service participation. In other words, if 200% more families were at the Oneg, and even 10% of them were persuaded to attend the service, there would be a good-sized boost on service participation. The saying, you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. See, with honey, then with vinegar. What are you doing? Really rings true. And I think it was vinegar that was poured on me that evening. Vinegar. Oh my goodness. Okay, didn't get in my eyes. Whew. Okay, I anticipate this video added at least some new perspective, not only for me and my son due to our rabbi, but also for viewers. With sufficient viewership, if otherwise inspired, I plan to do some shorter videos as well. And if they end up extensively viewed, it may encourage me to do more. So please like and subscribe. Comments may be helpful too.